Over the past couple of days, I have been replaying one of my all-time favorite RPGs, Baten Kaitos Origins on Nintendo GameCube, and I have been shocked at just how well paced this is, how engaging it is, how much fun it is to play. This very well may go down as one of my all-time favorite games now, not just my favorite RPGs. So, playing it again and revisiting it, I've been very nostalgic about my first playthrough of this, which is one of those life-changing experiences that I had growing up because this is in a lot of ways the game that made me love RPGs. At the time, I hadn't played a lot of them, especially not more obscure ones. So this one kind of came out of nowhere and blindsided me with its depth, its complexity, its excellently written characters, and its fun, inventive scenarios. And coming back to it with a lot more life experience, with a lot more experience with RPGs in general, it really makes me realize just how well executed this game actually is. Because it would be very easy to write this off as a simple boy saves world plot. And with very simplistic characters that follow along with very simplistic JRPG cliches. But in actuality, it is incredibly subversive. It defies expectations and it really establishes this really engaging, politically gray world. And I think that's a one of the really interesting things about this game in particular is that it simultaneously feels very grounded and very relatable with like Sagi wanting to like provide for his family and like his orphanage and all that. And simultaneously it has that grander feel to it. Like this really well thought out engaging fantasy setting with all these different factions, all these different groups vying for power and eventually you find yourself working for one of them that may not have the best in your best interests at heart. So you take into consideration like all of these really crazy like monumental story decisions like the setup, the execution, like the mystery of it all, and it just culminates in this like really gorgeously realized RPG, like the best that I've ever played, honestly. There's so much about this game that really sticks out to me as just being spectacular. You know, previously I've talked about the initial setup, the plot, the characters, the voice acting in the English version. I've talked about some of the unique aspects of it, but one of the things I haven't really touched on much is just individual sequences as you go through each of the game's areas. This game has quite a lot of versatility when it comes to its dungeon design, when it comes to its art direction, and when it comes to the story situations in which your characters get into. And I think this specific situation, the Azani, the Mourning Mistral mystery, is actually one of the defining examples of why I love this game so much. Because on a replay, you can totally see that like it is kind of simplistic. It's kind of obvious who the culprit is. It's there are all these signs of what's actually going on. But on a first playthrough, when you uh go through this completely blind, it is an incredibly well set up, established mystery. You know, it's better than something like Ace Attorney because in a lot of ways you don't really see it coming. Because when you first get to Greater Mintaka, you're introduced to the idea that a terrorist is bombing civilians. You know, a terrorist is going out, bombing the empire for reasons of his own, right? Nobody knows who it is. Nobody knows what's happening, but it's some act of terror being committed against the empire. And you are introduced to the concept by witnessing the bombing. You're there and you spend a lot of time just seeing the damage, interacting with the people who are hurt, people who have nothing to do with anything, right? Innocent bystanders and the like. And eventually you get back on track to what you were doing before, in which you were like, in which you were going to meet your Quaestor Varus, who has pledged to help you in your quest to deal with like pro machination efforts and bail height and supporting the orphanage and all that. And eventually, he tasks you with investigating the Mourning Mistral. Right, like you are asked to look into this terrorist subplot, and essentially, what ends up happening is that characters you have met already, characters that you met and liked and have been portrayed as positively, are now under suspicion of harboring a terrorist. And if you actually like did what I did and like asked around the village, like there are signs that like things aren't all that well there, but you just kind of write it off as this like, world building. You don't think it's building up to anything particularly spectacular. But now you're here investigating these people that you've visited and enjoy like gotten to know a little bit, and they're not happy about it. They suddenly don't like you and they don't want anything to do with you. And you're like desperately trying to uncover the mystery of who's behind this and why it's happening and just what it means for the setting in the world. And what ends up happening is that the terrorist actions are set up to be sympathetic. I don't want to say justifiable, but sympathetic in the sense where like the Empire is abusing the Azanis, that they're taking all the flame ice and they're not leaving a whole lot of money to pay for it, and people are just sick of it, and they're just getting destroyed. And what ends up happening is that a lot of them are not all of them, but a lot of them are harboring the criminal. So as you do proceed with your investigations and as you uncover the truth behind the situation, you have to engage with the game's unique mechanics in a lot of interesting ways to uncover the truth behind who's lying and what actually happened. And you can argue it's kind of simplistic, it's kind of straightforward. You basically just have to go around like talking to like critical NPCs, and I think considering some like format decisions, it's pretty obvious who actually did it. But when you take into consideration like how much effort went into like setting this up, establishing these characters and playing out the scenario, you really get this sense of like depth and creativity that you rarely see in RPGs. And it's one of the things that really struck me about it when I first played it, is that this game is showcasing the other side of being a terrorist. Because, as Americans, we were a victim of a terrorist attack in the 9/11 um, attacks. And, in this game, we're kind of seeing the other side of it. Like the reason why people commit acts of terror, because they are being oppressed and victimized or they see themselves as being victimized by the people that they're committing acts of terror against, right? They're doing it. They see themselves more as like freedom fighters and people who are like standing up for a just cause. Like they don't necessarily see what they're doing as wrong, right? Or if they do, they kind of see it as being justified. So in that sense, this game has a much more mature, nuanced topic on this subject that I think most American media would ever depict. It's not something you would never see anyone do in an American project, is this idea of showcasing like uh effectively why people commit acts of terror while still emphasizing how it's affecting people that don't have anything to do with why they're doing what they're doing to begin with. In short, instead of being like propaganda meant to make you believe certain things about this kind of behavior, it sets up a situation, tells a story about it, and gives you the freedom to come up with your own decisions. And that's kind of what makes it so beautiful, is that Sagi, the protagonist, is actually very sympathetic to the Azanis. He likes these people, he wants what's best for them, he understands that they're living in miserable conditions and that there are a lot of problems with their relationship with the Empire, but at the same time, the the Mourning Mistral's actions are not justifiable. Like, he is a terrorist. He is attacking innocent people, and he's just causing more problems that could be resolved another way. And that's kind of the way he sees it. But to the Mourning Minstrel himself, right, this is the only possible way to get back at the Empire. This is the only way to try and defend themselves against what's happening. And to them, like, uh, to the people of Azani, it is like it is a worthwhile endeavor. It's something that they celebrate and want to see succeed. Like, they want the Mourning Minstrel to continue what he's doing for the most part. There are some exceptions, but, like, again, the fact that, like, there are even people in Aza who don't seem to know what's going on, as if, like, there are people in the community that can't be trusted to who can't be trusted to know the truth of what's happening. It really just goes to show you how it feels like this very real, like, open rebellion of people who have just been pushed to the brink and are going to, like, insane lengths to do this terrible thing for their own gain, right? It is a shockingly evocative storyline, one that ends in, like, one of, I think, the most brutal moments in this game, in which the guy you've been working for, working with, I should say, Luavan, the commander of the Empire, who's been giving you advice and helping you, being kind of a jerk. He actually is not as sympathetic to the Azanis as you are. So in the end, when you try and corner the perpetrator, like, he ends up going up against a lot of the Azanis who are not actually involved in the case. Like, he has this mindset that, like, we have to arrest them all. We have to do this. And he ends up hitting a woman, you know, as the perpetrator flees, and you have to pursue him as the crowd, like, beats him up. Like, it is shocking, playing this game and seeing just how it's able to tackle so many complex social topics, because there was a perpetrator, the terrorist was an Azani, but at the same time, in the end of the day, like, Louvain, like, the commander, one of the investigators ended up hitting someone who had absolutely nothing to do with it and getting in a fight with the locals. Like, again, this is why the game does such an excellent job showcasing real world scenarios in situations like this and making it feel real. Like, it is shocking to see, like, how the characters all react and bounce off of all of these scenarios, and how much they seem like how they're all completely different people, and yet, like, just come together on these kinds of things. And, like, it's so interesting in this regard how, like, the protagonists don't really have that much in common at all, and yet still, like, kind of work together to do this investigation. Like, it's really good character building and really showcases how tight knit they actually are, even at this early stage. Thematically, I think this arc kind of suits the game perfectly, in that it kind of demonstrates the morally gray situation that the characters find themselves in, and yet, through being, like, genuinely good people and working to uncover the mystery, like, they are able to kind of overcome it and resolve the situation as best they are able. And they don't fix all the problems. That's not possible. But and yet, just by being there and being genuine human beings and doing the right thing, they are, like, taking that first step for these people to live better lives and to resolve this act of terrorism. It's such an interesting look at this game's morality, where it's oddly kind of a bleak setting with all these, like, underhanded political machinations going on behind the scenes, and all these radical, like, political leaders, and all these insane plans for the future. And yet you have, like, the protagonist, who is, literally from an orphanage. I mean, his mom runs the orphanage, but he lives there, like, who is just kind of, like, involving himself with these global affairs and kind of defying all expectations, like defying, like doing everything he possibly can uh, for other people. Now, a lot of these people's problems continue into the next game. Well, in fact, that's pretty self-evident. But the fact of the matter is, Sagi, because through his actions, because of the actions of the party and because of the things they do, like the little things they do for other people matter. And it's just kind of shocking to see like so much effort put into this plot line in which you essentially investigate an attack on a bunch of nameless NPCs, because none of the characters that were hurt during the bombing were major characters. They were just random people you were around. And yet you understand instinctively like what a big deal this is and why you have to put a stop to it. And the specifications of why the specifics of why this happened don't really matter all that much, because the end result that a bunch of random people that had got hurt isn't something that can be ignored or written off. Like, we have to deal with this terrorist. And it's such an interesting look at this kind of setup. It's so well executed, and it does such a great job kind of establishing the characters and really making them feel tight knit and really feeling as if they can really like rely on and trust each other. And considering like after this point we start learning more about the setting and about what's actually going on, it's a major pivotal turning point in the game's plot. Like, this is, like, for me, probably one of the more iconic moments of this game. There are so many, like, 10 out of 10 moments, I can't even really keep track of them. And honestly, on a replay, I'm not even sure if this is my favorite. But for a first playthrough, this was definitely something that left a major impact on me and really demonstrated, I think, just how this specific game was a cut above other RPGs I was playing at the time. It's so well executed, it's so well handled, it's so much fun that I enjoy it every time I return to it.